because this kind of stuff is ultimately confusing. There's a lot of confusion surrounding it. There's no good leadership on the Democratic Party side that is like effectively cutting through all of this noise and directly telling Americans like, this is how they're going to f you over. Americans are left rudderless. They're left confused, and they only see the like selfish short-term gain that they perceive to be having in this situation. And then that's it. Dr. Roger Marshall, senator from Kansas, says, we have set up a $50 billion rural health fund with this reconciliation bill. We are giving rural hospitals a lifeline to survive. AOC responds, the reason rural hospitals need this lifeline to begin with is because you're killing them. Huh. You mean hit and run Marshall? He ran over his neighbor?
The breaking news this morning, House lawmakers are scrambling now to get back to the Hill and vote on the now new version.
To your point, my father-in-law is a Republican ex-New Jersey judge who complains that his son never brings his kids to visit in Florida because he's always working, but he's against all handouts except this no tax on overtime bull. Absolutely stupid. Yeah, there is a severe crisis in the collective consciousness of Americans that was born in the Reagan starving the beast era. Reaganomics never went away, even though we completely understand that it was a failure. It was an abject failure. And many people will point to Ronald Reagan as like a bad person and a responsible party for this. It still doesn't matter. There's plenty of Gen X people in the lead generation that, one, think that this mentality is still good. The rising tide lifts all boats, right? That's like number one. That's one of the biggest annoying tropes that you hear from that era. And then the other idea is like, oh, I don't want the government to give me a handout. I got to work hard, okay? It's like you're already working hard. The point is the government is literally giving you less. You shouldn't even need, in a perfect working system, you wouldn't even need any sort of additional government help because you would have all of your needs covered. And some of these should not even be up to the profit incentive anyway. Some of the things that the government is supposed to offer unconditionally is offered already to every single citizen unconditionally in other OECD nations, right? Like healthcare or education. These are things that the government is supposed to provide for all of its people unconditionally. But the most damaging and prevailing attitude from the Reaganomics era is this starving of the beast. The government is this beast. The government does not actually help you at all. The scariest words that any American can ever hear is, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help. This kind of attitude has persisted throughout time, where Americans, slowly but surely, through the erosion of the social safety nets, through the numerous decades erosion of their material conditions, have realized or have come to the conclusion that the government doesn't help them. And they're kind of right to feel that way. There's no more... there's no trust in the government, okay? Even though in many invisible ways the government is actively working, and it's a behemoth that makes sure that for example, your meat is not tainted and it's not poisonous when you purchase it at the grocery store, or that you know when a tornado is supposed to hit your neighborhood ahead of time, right? Like those are the invisible ways in which the government is actually working. And you only recognize that it's not working when the government fails. The only way you pay attention to the function of the government is when it actually fails, and it has been failing in spectacular fashion, especially in these past couple of months. You know, planes falling out of the sky and whatnot. So Americans do not believe that the government is actually doing anything that benefits them. There's no more trust and no more belief that the government is actually here to help them. This creates a unique predicament. This makes it much easier to starve the government. Why am I giving taxes to the government if they're not fixing the potholes? Okay? Why am I giving taxes to the government if they're not taking care of the homelessness problem? Not realizing that it is precisely this self-interested, hyper-individualistic attitude that has allowed the reactionary forces, both in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party, to cut away all of these programs that were supposed to help people, that were supposed to stop someone from falling victim to homelessness. Regulations in the housing market that's supposed to make sure that The housing market is stable so that people don't actually get priced out of their housing, whether it's rent or lose their homes altogether if they were lucky enough to purchase one. But neoliberalism is so, what is this? Stop downplaying the American people like they're all dumb, selfish hogs. They are hardworking, desperate, and trying to survive. Come on. Wait, what? Like, have you guys worked in customer service? Do you have a broken car? Do you have kids that need new clothes and only one job to support them? Have you been desperate? Is this selfish thought or survival mindset? No, what are you saying? That's you're agreeing with me. I'm describing the process in which, over the course of multiple decades, Americans have arrived at this like vicious cycle of austerity and how that has motivated them to selfish ways of thinking, to hyper individualistic ways of thinking. That's my point. And now you have entire swaths of the population advocating for their own demise. No population of a country is just dumb across the board. They're not like stupid and selfish. They are made to be stupid and self-interested. Neoliberalism is the idea that the government should involve itself in the economy and social services as little as necessary. To Dems, that means it still provides some services. That's their minimum. And to the GOP, it's virtually no services. But they're still both interested in making it the minimum. That's neoliberal hegemony. It's not just that. It's more nefarious than that. Neoliberalism implies that government intervention is a necessity to break up state-owned enterprise, for example, or to use government intervention in order to let the free market manifest itself. That's precisely the reason why neither party will ever actually go against subsidies for corporations. That's government incentives for corporations. As long as there is public-private partnership and as long as private enterprise thrives, everyone is happy. Neoliberalism isn't like pure libertarianism. A lot of people misunderstand it. Neoliberalism is about government intervention in the direction of expanding the free market, which is oxymoronic. It makes people, it obviously on its face, you're like, what do you mean? Government intervention or no intervention, right? No, neoliberalism dictates that government intervention is sometimes a necessity as long as it actually improves profit margins. This is precisely the reason why neither the Democrats nor the Republicans will oftentimes go after subsidies for all of these major corporations. Like, for example, under the Trump administration or any other administration, this has happened in times of crisis, right? Obama, 2008, restoration project for the economy. What did we do under Obama? We offered bailouts to companies that directly went back to the corporate structure as opposed to overtaking some of these companies and forcing the state to operate them in the same way that like the FDIC kicks in when a bank actually is on the verge of insolvency. Okay? We didn't do that. We didn't do an FDIC style measure because that was terrifying. How dare we regulate adequately these companies that were engaging in predatory loans and knowingly crippled the housing market, knowingly destroyed the housing market, created this massive bubble, right? So, and on the other side of things, when COVID took place, Donald Trump also did the same thing with Boeing and with all of these other major corporations. Instead of saying, hey, you guys did not take the adequate measures and take a more defensive posture, and instead took all of this money and then used it in the form of stock buybacks, which once again shouts out to Ronald Reagan, used to be illegal. Since Ronald Reagan, not illegal. It used to be considered market manipulation, right? Now it's not. It's perfectly legal and perfectly permissible. Instead of government intervention in the direction of overtaking these corporations and like running them at the behest of the public, they just gave massive bailouts to these companies in order to let the pre-existing for-profit capitalist way of business to continue.
Of Trump's massive tax cut and spending bill before their self-imposed
SPED means special education. He's just being ableist.
Friday deadline. The bill is becoming really something of a ping pong ball. The House voted first, then the Senate voted and made changes, and so now the House must vote again. And if they make further changes, you get where this is headed. With this, House Speaker Mike Johnson is facing another major test of his power.
It's a
Many House
slur.
Republicans are publicly voicing serious doubts about the Senate changes. That includes steeper cuts to Medicaid and a nearly $1 trillion increase in the deficit over the House's version. Johnson can only afford to lose 3 GOP votes. The speaker says that he's confident a final vote could come today. But back to that scrambling, they are literally also scrambling to physically get back to the Capitol as bad weather canceled a whole bunch of flights for many lawmakers that are trying to make it back in. Here's the speaker last night.
Well, we're having weather delays getting everybody back right now, but assuming we have a full House, we'll get it through the Rules Committee in the morning. We'll move that forward to the floor, and hopefully.
It's crazy that like the average person's capacity for change here is basically akin to a peasant in the medieval ages, just opening up your hands and demanding that the sky gods do divine intervention. Like that's the maximum amount of power that we have. We just like sit around, right? This is supposed to be a democracy. There's supposed to be a structure of pressure, a mechanism of pressure, a mechanism of pushback, a social contract that demands, that dictates that the people that we are voting into office are supposed to represent our best interests, right? But instead, we have the exact same structure that the peasants had in terms of implementing change in the goddamn feudal monarchies, where we just have to hope that like God takes care of it, okay? Some divine power takes care of the problem. Shut the up. I voted for this. You did? You voted for this? You voted for 17 million people getting kicked off of Medicaid coverage? You voted for your grandparents to no longer be able to live in a nursing home? I'm a masochist. It's so funny. When people learn about what's in this bill, by the way, it becomes immensely unpopular. The only reason why there's any sort of confusion here, or any sort of like any sort of defense of any of these measures in here, is because most people are oblivious to the downsides, to the immediate negative consequences that are baked into this big, beautiful bill. And therein lies the problem with messaging on the opposition party, the Democrats.
We're voting on this by tomorrow or Thursday at latest.
CNN's Arlette Saenz is at the Capitol for us this morning. And Arlette, it did make it through the Rules Committee while we were all sleeping. So set the stage for what is going to happen today.
Well, Kate, it could be another long slog ahead as lawmakers are 2 days away from that deadline to pass President
Brandon Duke, tax budget nerd, Center on Budget, former Biden-Harris National Economic Council tax budget supply chain guy, okay, says this bill will make 60% of the country poorer so we can shrink the economy by 4.6% over the next 30 years is one heck of an accomplishment. This is what the Penn-Wharton budget model found. We estimate that the Senate-passed reconciliation bill increases primary deficits by $3.1 trillion over 10 years. The dynamic cost, including changes to the economy, is larger than $3.5 trillion. GDP falls by 0.3 in 10 years and falls by 4.6 in 30 years. So it doesn't even do the thing that Republicans will cynically claim it does, which is to expand the economy. I mean, I personally don't give a shit about all that as much, aside from the actual impact that it will have on the working poor. But that also adds insult to injury. That is the great irony here as well. Incredible stuff. Will China bail us out? Is this good? No.
President Trump's domestic agenda bill. As you mentioned, it passed through the Rules Committee just last overnight, clearing a key procedural hurdle. It received 2 no votes from Republicans, Chip Roy and Ralph Norman, who have expressed reservations about this bill. But this will be a major test once again for House Speaker Mike.
Hey, at least the billionaires will be richer, you stinking socialist. True. My bad. My mistake for not talking about the real minority, the only minority, the real POWs, okay? The real POCs, people of capital, real POWs, people of wealth, okay? My bad. My mistake. Get your money up, not your funny up, guys. Wow, I guess you don't care about minorities, you know? After all, what is a bigger minority than literally the top 1% of the 1%?
Johnson, as he is trying to hold his GOP conference together to get this bill across the finish line. Now, there are various factions that they are trying to appease here. There are those more conservative lawmakers who believe that this does not do enough to cut spending. And there are others who are concerned.
That's my favorite type. That's my favorite archetype. Guy who's like, we need to melt more poor people. And it's such a weird predicament that like those are the guys who have the most motion, the ideological zealots that want to basically strap an IED to this bill because it doesn't kill enough poor people, and those are our only option of spiking the football, at least so that people can hopefully communicate how devastating this bill is in the long run. Taking advantage of congressional gridlock, hopefully with a competent enough opposition party.
About the steeper cuts to Medicaid that were made in the Senate plan. So that highlights the various ways they're going to have to try to stitch together support to pass this bill. Now, any changes that are made to this bill would then require it to go back to the Senate. And that is something that House leadership and President Trump are trying to avoid. But here's a sample of some of the concerns about the process, about the bill itself that have been expressed by GOP lawmakers over the last 24 hours.
So this whole thing is, I don't know what to call it. It's a show.
My colleagues in the Senate failed us.
My goat. Talk to him, Chip. Talk to him, Chip. Talk about how little the working poor is being killed in this bill. And more working poor must be killed, okay? We need to put more orphans in the orphan crushing machine. Not enough orphans are in the orphan crushing machine. Talk to him, Chip. My goat.
My colleagues in the Senate failed us.
I think the founders and the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence would be astounded that we're adding debt to our children grandchildren.
Yeah, more debt. This is unacceptable. We need to cut more. We need to cut more of the expenditures. I think we should just make it illegal for there to be government-funded health care. Take it out, I say. The only money that the government should be spending is bullets for the military to line up every person that makes less than $250,000 and shoots them dead in the head. They are not productive members of society. And if they want to be productive members of society, put them in a concentration camp and make them work for their meal. That's right. That and more bombs for Israel. Am Israel high.
Children who are defenseless.
Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes on this measure, a very narrow razor-thin majority that he is operating with. And we've already heard about dozens of lawmakers express concerns about this bill. Another issue that leadership is facing in this moment is that storms across the East Coast had delayed or canceled many of lawmakers' flights who are trying to return back to Washington. In fact, there are Democrats like Congressman Krishnamurthy out in Illinois, and then Republicans like South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who are physically driving to Washington to make sure that they can be here for this vote. The House right now is set to open at 9 a.m. At some point, there would be a vote on the rule related to the bill before they move to debate and then vote on final passage. Of course, it's not a guarantee that they will get the votes on that rule. So
do the rain dance. Do the rain dance. Pray to the gods. Pray to the gods that bad weather conditions don't permit enough congressional representatives to get into Congress to vote. We're praying for the rain dance, baby.
There will be a lot of high-stakes drama to watch over the course of the day as the House GOP leadership is trying to muscle this bill through the House to get it on President Trump's desk by Friday.
Arlette, thank you so much for kicking us off. It's going to get very busy there very, very soon. Put on your bingo card, guys. Weather delays adding to the fun.
I was going to say road trip, congressional road trip.
We do love a road trip.
Yeah, what could be more fun than a drive from Chicago to vote on this bill? All right, this morning, a senior White House official says that President Trump has already been working the phones trying to get House lawmakers to pass what he calls everyone's bill. The president is urging Republicans to unite and ignore the occasional grandstanders. Let's get to CNN's Kevin Liptak at the White House this morning. Where does the White House see things right now?
Yeah, there continues to be a lot of confidence in this building that this bill will eventually pass. Trump himself just said yesterday that he thought getting it through the House would actually be easier than the Senate. Despite all of this opposition that you see bubbling up, I think the gamble that they're making is that President Trump's arm twisting, that his pressure tactics will eventually cause these Republicans to get in line. And it's not as if they don't have history on their side here. There are not a lot of examples in recent memory of House Republicans not giving Trump what he wants, and they see what happened in the Senate as kind of a roadmap. You know, there were a number of Republicans who insisted that they were against this bill, only to eventually vote yes when it came up on the floor. And so a lot of confidence in this building. One point that they're making is that they have been in continuous touch with the House Republicans throughout this process. They're not just starting to whip this bill now. They have been kind of on the hunt for votes over the last several weeks, even as the Senate was making changes. White House officials still view that Friday deadline as operable, even though President Trump sounded a little more flexible on it yesterday. We did hear from Russ Vought, who's the president's budget director, talking about how they're trying to get some Republicans in line. Listen to what he said.
If you were to take any part of this bill and just debate one part of it, you would have overwhelming support by all Republicans generally. It's all put together. And so we're trying to continue to educate on how much is being done and then the extent to which this is a part of a plan to get to a balanced budget over time.
So you hear that vote, they're talking about educating Republicans. President Trump has also been on the phone. He's been educating, but he's also been threatening, talking about primary challenges to Republicans who might oppose this package. I think the challenge that the president has in front of him is that there are two sort of polar sets of opposition to this bill, whether it's Republicans who think it explodes the deficit or Republicans who thinks that it cuts the social safety net too much. President Trump, you know, I asked him on the South Lawn yesterday about some of the politics of all of this, and he said he didn't want Republicans to go too crazy with cuts. So they're, I think, still very sensitive to some of the politics that could be in play in all of this.
Yeah, he's educating them about how difficult he will make it for them politically if they vote against him. Kevin Liptak at the White House this morning. Keep us posted.